Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is John Moy. I'm the Senior Director for Policy at the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. And on behalf of our partners, the Georgia NAACP, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the ACLU of Georgia, the League of Women Voters, Leader Carolyn Hughley, Leader Harold Jones, we welcome you to this press conference to address Senate Bill 120 and its effects on the communities we serve. At this time, I'm going to bring to you our leader, the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate, Senate Minority Leader Harold Jones.
Thank you. Recently, the Georgia Senate has taken up SB 120, which bans promoting, supporting, or maintaining any programs or activities that advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. According to the bill, post-secondary institutions that violate its provisions would have state funds or state-administered federal funding withheld. But it's actually bigger than that. The assault on diversity is actually an assault on American values. Diversity, equity, and inclusion brings people together. It basically brings us together to solve America's and Georgia's problems. The assault in SB 120 is a retreat from the American and Georgian spirit of inclusion. It's a retreat from our shared values of finding out what makes us better as a nation and as a state. This an assault is one that diverts our attention. At this particular point in time, we should be bringing people together to solve such issues such as healthcare, housing, income inequality, and childcare issues. But instead, we've passed bills like SB 120, which tears us apart. Because make no mistake, our nation and this state can only solve these problems together. And diversity, equity, inclusion brings us together, all bringing us with unique perspectives, but all having a singular focus on how we can improve the lives of the people of America and the people of this state. That is why it is bigger than just losing state funding. It actually is an assault on our American values and Georgia values. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Next, the Honorable Nikki Merritt, who serves as a member of the State Senate, who serves as chairperson of the Georgia Legislative Caucus. Senator Merritt.
Good afternoon, everyone. And greetings, members of the press. SB 120 is a tone-deaf legislative tragedy, and it is designed to tear us apart in the state of Georgia. Despite overwhelming feedback against SB 120, the authors and the committee members who pushed this legislation through have continued to force this bill through this system in abusing the legislative power that they have been given. It is an insult to the entire state of Georgia and the diversity that we enjoy in this state and celebrate. First of all, it's a complete rejection of our state's legacy and what makes our state exceptional. We are one of the most diverse states in the entire country, and our history is built upon a sense of pride related to Georgia's core role in the civil rights movement. Secondly, the evidence shows that diversity programs work, but they're not even enough. As of 2022, Black faculty comprised of only 6% and 3.6% of full professors at UGA and Georgia Tech, respectively, between UGA and Georgia Tech. Moreover, Black students only accounted for 6.4% of the students enrolled at UGA and 8% of the students enrolled at Tech. Black Georgians make up 1/3 of the overall state's population. Cutting back DEI programs that help recruit and retain students and faculty will only make the disparity worse. Lastly, it reveals again how unserious some legislators are about using our power to improve the lives of our constituents and all Georgians. There is a massive amount of funding at stake here, massive, that many of our institutions rely on. It creates a legal risk by weaponizing civil rights laws against the very people those laws were designed to protect. This would threaten the vital pipeline programs for educators. And how, again, is this benefiting anyone? I keep seeing legislation this session that benefits no one. I'm calling on my fellow senators to reject SB 120. And I'm asking members of the public, and hear me clearly, I need you to call these legislators that pass through SB 120, ring their phones off the hook. And if you need their numbers, I'm gonna put them on my website, and you start calling them now. Call the lieutenant governor, call the governor, and tell them this is unacceptable, and we want you to reject 120 and don't even bring it to the Senate floor. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Chairperson. And now, former State Representative Roger Bruce.
I told everybody I wasn't coming back down here unless they pissed me off, and they pissed me off. Why do we need laws that deal with diversity and deals with helping the descendants of slavery? Why do we need to support diversity? The main reason is because slavery was real. It was not a myth. People died, people were lynched, all kinds of things happened in this country that caused people that were descendants of slaves to not have an equal opportunity and an equal chance to be able to participate in democracy as they said democracy was supposed to be. We didn't do that. The playing field is not level. We're not in a situation where everybody starts from the same point. And when that doesn't happen, some people have an advantage that others don't. An admission to segregation, an admission to all of those things that went wrong is a starting point. It gives us an opportunity to determine what has happened bad in this country that we need to fix. I really want to call on those people that are sponsoring this bill to tell us what's really bothering them, what's really wrong, because it can't be this, because you can't be totally ignorant to what is happening. There's something else that's on your mind. I think you need to bring it out so we can address what's really bothering you. We could all stand here all day long and try to guess what that is. I think we all know, but you need to come out and say it. What's the real problem, and what do you want to do about it? I want to thank all of those that have come out today, because a lot of people seem to be afraid, for whatever reason, to speak out and speak up for things that are wrong in this city, in this country, and in this world for that matter. I don't know what's on people's mind to make them fearful, but I'm glad to see these people that came out, because what is going on is wrong. This bill should not even get to the Senate floor, and I hope that if it does, that you will stand up and do what's right and vote it down. Thank you for allowing me to come and say something today.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Representative Bruce. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting Nancy Flake Johnson, President and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. President Johnson.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who showed up to support our firm and solid opposition to SB 120. Informed by history, the Urban League understands the harm that SB 120 will bring to our public schools, our public institutions, and most importantly, to our communities across this state. This bill limits our constitutional rights to freedom of speech and equal access for all families to the critical resources and needs that we all require to live a quality life. But most importantly, diversity, equity, and inclusion is actually one of the best strategies that our country has employed to bring us together and achieve parity for all citizens in our country. DEI supports women, minorities, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ+ community, and we too are citizens of this state. In fact, when all of those constituency groups combine, we make up more than half the population of our state. So we are imploring our elected officials to listen to your constituents, to think through carefully the impact, the trickle-down but devastating impact that the passage of this bill will create. We've already seen in the last 30+ days the ripple effect of these policies. People losing their jobs, institutions having to limit access to care, students fearful that they will not receive their scholarships so they can complete their education. This bill is designed to support people, all people. We know our history in this country. This bill would even ban our ability to talk about race and diversity, equity, and inclusion. The way society, civil society solves problems, it's through communication. It's through the sharing of ideas and solutions. And so we are prayerful that our elected officials will listen to their constituents. We participated in the hearing last week on this bill. Not one single solitary person who testified was in favor of this bill. Yet there were 30 to 40 diverse individuals present, all expressing our concerns. When we have elected officials who don't listen to their constituents and serve them in an authentic way, we put our democracy and our society and our state at risk. So thank you for being here. Let's stand together. And I'm going to reiterate the points that our elected officials who preceded me stated. If our government does not hear from the people, they are in a position to put forth their personal agendas. So pick up the phone, make the calls, write the letters, send the emails. We've got to have our voices heard. The urgency is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Johnson. At this time, the Honorable Carolyn Hughley, House Minority Leader.
Good morning, and thanks to everybody for being here. You know, the United States of America is not just a place on the map. It's an idea, it's a promise, it's a beacon of hope. From our very founding, people from all over the world have come here seeking freedom and opportunity. Our Statue of Liberty says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." And President Reagan called America a shining city on a hill because we welcome all who dare to live free, who want to believe in the American dream. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a part of the American dream. And that's because anything is possible if you work hard. Our diversity is not our weakness, it is our strength. It inspires innovation, it strengthens our economy, and it enriches our culture. We are a nation of white and native, black and brown, young and old, men and women, rich and poor. We are people, all the same because we are Americans. America is the greatest nation on earth, and I believe you think as I do, that we cannot be great if we embrace hate. And Senate Bill 120 is about embracing hate. And I call on every Georgian of goodwill to call on our senators to reject this awful bill, because it was once said that this was a place that was too busy to hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. And now Chase Pettiford will bring remarks. He's student and president of the Georgia Tech NAACP. Chase?
Good morning. My name is Chase Pettiford, and I serve as the president of the NAACP unit seated at Georgia Tech. I stand here before you today not only as a student leader speaking on behalf of many student leaders, not only as a Georgia resident speaking on behalf of many Georgia residents, but as a person who is scared about the future of our communities on my campus and on campuses around our state. I was asked to speak about the impact of anti-DEI policies on students at Georgia Tech, and the truth is, we are terrified. These policies do not create fairness, they only deepen inequality. When I first considered attending Georgia Tech, I was told I might not find a place there. But those fears were unfounded. Georgia Tech welcomed me, my peers, and because of this commitment to fostering a campus where everyone belongs. To watch this come under fire this week has been the lowest point of my academic career. These spaces, places, and conversations foster community, not some unfair advantage or an ideology that harms other groups. We are watching our institutions that have made great strides in the last 50 years regress in front of our eyes, and it is heartbreaking. As Senate Bill 120 currently stands, there is no carve-out for student organizations. As entities registered through our institutions, it is unclear how student organizations that we have built from the ground up will survive if this bill passes. This bill is a direct attack on students from all angles. Moreover, Senate Bill 120 isn't just about the present, it's about Georgia's future. This bill threatens and undermines Georgia Tech's legacy as a leader in education and innovation. It risks restricting the free exchange of ideas and perspectives that are crucial to the growth of our institution and our state. If this bill passes, we will see that students leave Georgia to pursue education in states that value inclusion and belonging. What kind of future does that create for Georgia? Research has shown that diverse educational environments foster innovation, collaboration, and better outcomes for all students. These programs are essential to preparing our students to be leaders in a globalized world. Cutting them off will only hinder our state's ability to compete in an increasingly diverse and interconnected world. I strongly believe that Senate Bill 120 will harm not only Georgia Tech students, but all students in this state. It will prevent us from living up to the ideas of fairness and opportunity that Georgia has long stood for. Therefore, I respectfully urge you to vote no on Senate Bill 120. Let us not allow the progress we've worked so hard to achieve to be reversed. Our students deserve better, and Georgia deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Powerful. Thank you, Chase. And next, Rainey Reinhardt, a student. Rainey, are you with us? I see you, Senator. Hey, Rainey, please.
Hello. My name is Ray Reinhardt, and I'm an organizer with the Georgia Youth Justice Coalition, as well as a first-year student at Georgia Tech studying communication and biology. Right now, in the 2-hour gap between my chemistry lecture and lab, I should be catching up on homework and grabbing lunch. Instead, I'm here, standing in front of you, because I refuse to stay silent while our legislators attack the programs that make Georgia's colleges an accepting place of belonging. To the legislators pushing this bill, I ask you to think back to your first week of college. Do you remember what it was like to be surrounded by strangers? The nervous, surreal energy when everyone made small talk at the drop of a hat? You didn't find your people in that first week. You may not have found them in your first year. But when you did, how did it happen? Was it through a club, a campus program? You know that these spaces are crucial to student success. So what happens when they're gone? My first semester at Tech was lonely. I wondered if I'd ever find the friendships I dreamed of finding in college. That changed when I found Georgia Tech's LGBTQ+ Resource Center and the student-run Pride Alliance. These spaces bring students of all genders and sexualities together in community. These spaces became my go-to between classes, my relief after stressful exams. They gave me community and belonging. That's why last month I ran for Vice President of Operations for Pride Alliance, because I want to help every first-year student feel the same sense of belonging that I found. But I stand here today because I worry for students across Georgia who may never get to the chance to experience that feeling. SB 120 has already forced Georgia Tech to dissolve crucial student support programs, including the LGBTQ+ Resource Center, Black Culture, Innovation and Technology, intercultural student programs, and the Women's Resource Center. This bill is part of a larger effort to whitewash our communities and our history to control a political narrative, erasing Black, brown, and LGBTQ+ voices from our institutions while propping up a world where only a few privileged people belong. We know that throughout history, certain politicians have tried to divide us by race, gender, and background to hold power. They tell us that funding programs for Black students, queer students, and other marginalized communities is unfair, while they rig the system to benefit the wealthy few. We won't fall for it. I'm here to ask, on a campus full of people from countless backgrounds and countries, where students speak dozens of languages, how can we thrive without programs that advocate for diversity? In a state, in a country that has refused to provide its citizens with equal opportunities, how can we thrive without programs that advocate for equity? On a campus with over 50,000 students, in an intense academic culture that can be isolating and overwhelming, how can we thrive without programs that advocate for inclusion? We can't. The students of Georgia cannot thrive under SB 120. I speak for students across the state when I demand, at the very least, that our legislators carve out protections for student organizations within the language of SB 120. This would align with executive orders limiting DEI programs in public institutions. Failing to carve out these protections would be a blatant violation of our First Amendment rights. A few of my peers are here today, including someone who works for what was the LGBTQ+ Resource Center. Hundreds of Tech students are organized in the past week to fight SB 120. They're making calls. They're showing up. The students of Georgia will not sit back and let our constitutional rights be stripped away by the people that we elected to represent us. We are organizing, we are speaking out, and we will not be silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Rainey. Next, our Executive Director of the ACLU of Georgia, Attorney Andrea Young.
Thank you very much. I want to ask everybody to listen to our students. When I graduated as an honor student from an Atlanta public school, I did not even consider the University of Georgia, because only a decade before, students integrating this University of Georgia had been yelled at and isolated and treated like they did not belong. My daughter was able to go to University of Georgia with the kind of programs that are now being attacked by this bill. She was able to thrive in her NAACP chapter. She was able to thrive in the Student Government Association, where students from all backgrounds, all across Georgia, came together and learned how to work together and how to lead. And so these are the things that are at stake. I mean, there's really nothing I can say more than looking at these young people to understand what is at stake. We're not talking about admissions. You know, there's no affirmative action in admissions in public universities in Georgia. We are talking about the students who have the test scores, have the grades, who were excelled in their high school programs. Will they be able to thrive in our demanding research settings like Georgia Tech and University of Georgia and our other research institutions? You know, our very selective institutions, the students who qualify to go to these highly selective schools, will they have the services that they need to thrive and do their best work and fulfill the potential that they have already demonstrated that they have? And so that is what is at stake in this program and this denial of the reality of our diversity. And of course, I have to say that in Georgia and in Metro Atlanta, we know diversity has been our strength, but we are still behind. There is as they are considering this bill, there is a report that says Metro Atlanta is dead last in terms of economic mobility for our children. So these are children who have beaten the odds. We have kids who beat the odds. But let's understand, we are leaving far too many children behind. And Charlotte, up the road, when they heard about this report a decade ago, they got busy and did something about it. We need to do something about moving our children out of poverty into prosperity. We are behind nationally in that endeavor, and this bill will make it even more difficult for our educational institutions, which are the engines of opportunity, to address the specific needs of our diverse students and help them thrive and become the prosperous adults that we all need them to be. Because I don't know about you, I need somebody paying into Social Security for me. So we need our students to fulfill their fullest potential, not just for them, but also for our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. And now, Hamida Labi, Senior Policy Counsel for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Hamida?
Good morning. Can you hear me? We're good? Okay. Good morning. My name is Hamida Suat Labi. I serve as Senior Policy Counsel at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the nation's oldest racial justice legal organization. And as the organization that litigated Brown versus Board of Education, we are here today to urge the Senate to oppose the ongoing attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion and vote no on Senate Bill 120. Today, we are proud to stand alongside these fierce advocates fighting back against the onslaught of attacks on racial justice and educational equity. Senate Bill 120 is a dangerous effort to politicize our public educational system, and it puts Georgia's educators and students last. This legislation threatens to exacerbate pre-existing racial inequality through its vague prohibitions, lack of substantive or procedural guardrails, and penalties like we heard today that could also strip schools of billions of dollars in federal funding, resulting in substantial harm to Georgia's public school students, entire school districts, and across college campuses across our state. Much like we saw with the attacks on critical race theory, this legislation broadly mischaracterizes diversity, equity, and inclusion. Anti-civil rights advocates have co-opted the term to refer to anything related to race, gender, or sexual orientation, while also distorting its goals to wrongly suggest that they are discriminatory, when in actuality, they are used to prevent and remedy discrimination. LDF is deeply concerned that this bill may lead to the targeting of Black students and educators through the elimination of racially inclusive instruction, programs, and services that help us to overcome unfair barriers and better integrate into non-diverse environments. As highlighted today, we have already seen examples of this. How ironic that in Georgia, where we first integrated, or desegregated rather, our college campuses and universities only 64 years ago, are we having a conversation about how Black Georgians receive preferential treatment or special benefits? Denying the existence of the persisting vestiges of the legal subjugation of Black people in our state and across our country is what this bill does. This is not just about acknowledging truthful history. It is also about acknowledging how that history contributes to existing disparities. The proposed justification for this bill belies the real-life experiences of Black educators and students from Atlanta to Savannah and all across the Black Belt. Black professors and students remain grossly underrepresented, as highlighted in Senator Merritt's comments, and prohibiting diversity, equity, and inclusion will exacerbate those disparities. We also know that Black students attending the least racially diverse schools experience discrimination most frequently. Our K-12 educational system has similar concerning disparities, and Georgia is one of the top 10 states in the country with the highest rates of school segregation for Black students. But here we are today, trying to justify why diversity, equity, and inclusion programs should exist. As a product of Georgia's public school education system, I know from personal experience what this looks and feels like. How can we justify certain public school students having access to high-quality, diverse educators, robust and inclusive school curricula, computers and books that are not falling apart, and wraparound services, while others within the same state and oftentimes within the same district lack access to these same resources? Today, we should be gathering to talk about policies to close the racial achievement gap, like improving funding for low-income students, culturally responsive approaches to strengthening school climate, and other ways that we should uphold our constitutional mandate of equal protection in our public schools. Indeed, the success of our multiracial democracy relies upon pathways to academic and professional achievement that are open to all. This legislature must wield its authority to effectuate laws designed to truly remedy legacies of racial exclusion that persist today, not erect new barriers to those very communities harmed by racial discrimination by dismantling lawful efforts that help schools comply with federal civil rights and anti-discrimination laws. Now is not the time, never is the time, for Georgia to take a step backwards. Vote no on Senate Bill 120. Call the governor, call the lieutenant governor, follow all the calls to actions that we hear today. Let's keep fighting.
Thank you. Vote no. 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 Our last speaker, and a powerful advocate on behalf of all people, my good friend, attorney Christopher Bruce, Policy Director at the ACLU of Georgia.
Good morning. Yeah, I love to hear that. Good morning. I'm Christopher Bruce, the Policy and Advocacy Director of the ACLU of Georgia, an organization for over 70 years that has protected Georgia's constitutional rights in the community, in the courts, and especially in the classroom. At its core, Senate Bill 120 is an attack on the values that make our schools and universities places of learning, growth, and opportunity. This bill prohibits people from walking in front of the speaker's podium, as well as prohibiting educational institutions from advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But tellingly, it all allows opposition to these very same principles. This viewpoint discrimination and its direct violation of First Amendment rights of students and educators alike. Educators have the right to express diverse viewpoints in the classroom, and students have the right to receive information free from government interference. Senate Bill 120 would strip those rights away. By silencing discussions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, this bill seeks to erase critical parts of our history, limit students' ability to engage with realities of the world around them. This censorship is seen. It is plain and simple. It is plain. It is seen. It is a violation of your rights. Senate Bill 120 is also a blatant attack on student organizations. Under this bill, student groups that would promote diversity and inclusion could be shut down or even worse, defunded, while groups opposing those values would be allowed to remain. This is a direct assault on students' rights to freedom of association, another fundamental constitutional protection. We have already seen the harmful consequences of similar legislation in other states like Texas, where multicultural centers have been closed and students have been forced to disband. If Senate Bill 120 becomes law, Georgia will follow the same dangerous path Already, Georgia Tech has had these issues surrounding several other student groups, as you heard earlier today. Finally, Senate Bill 120 provides no clear guidance on what is prohibited, leaving educators in the dark of what they can and cannot say. This certainly will lead to self-censorship and the erasure of important discussions in our schools. We urge every lawmaker to vote on this bill, and we urge the people to wake up on what is attacking your diversity, equity, inclusion, and history that has made this state great. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Bruce. That concludes our press conference for today. What do we say? Vote what? No. What? No. What? No. Vote no. Thank you all very much.